Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about Windows Mobile Application Management. Now, mobile application management is differentiated from mobile device management in this way. With mobile device management, we control the entire device, whether that's an iOS device, Android, a Windows device. Mobile device management means that we're in control of the device. We can install applications, we can wipe the entire device, we can set security options on the device, all those types of things. Mobile application management is a much smaller subset of functionality. Mobile application management is, as it implies, when we manage applications. In this case, where we tell applications what we'd like to allow and what we don't want to allow, or what we'd like to prevent. Now, mobile application management is used most often, in the past I should say, has been used most often in iOS and Android, in mobile phones. And the reason for that is most mobile phones at companies are owned by the users themselves. And they have a problem, obviously, with the company completely controlling that device. They don't want their device to be white. They don't want access to their device to happen at that kind of a level. So mobile application management in that case is a much less intrusive way for us to manage our application data, our company data, our Office 365 data, to be exact. And we can introduce that via Intune and some conditional access policies. And this has been a common thing in the last few years to do for phones. And basically what we do is we tell an application, here's what we're going to allow and here's what we're not going to allow when someone is accessing our company data from Office 365. Now, for iOS and Android, there's a lot of applications that understand that, and more are coming on board pretty much every quarter. Most of the applications that we usually are referring to, though, are the Microsoft applications, Outlook Mobile, Office Mobile, Teams Mobile, OneDrive Mobile. And we tell those applications things like, well, we'd like our data to be encrypted. We don't want data from those applications that came from Office 365 to go somewhere else, like being sent somewhere else or being copied and pasted. And we'd also like to wipe the data anytime that we want to. So we tell the applications that, and they pretty much obey. Now, when we do that, we got to make sure that other applications on the phone are not allowed to access those Office 365 applications, because we don't control those applications, and they can do what they want. Like the native mail app on iOS and iPhone. We usually we'll use a conditional access policy to block that native mail app from accessing the person's mailbox, because that native mail app doesn't play ball with mobile application management yet. Maybe never. But Outlook certainly does, and it's another reason to encourage Outlook. All right, what about Windows? Well, in the past, we did have a way, and still do have an older way, to force a web-only, read-only experience from Windows when users are accessing their Office 365 information. We use conditional access policies to do this, and with something called app enforced restrictions. We basically tell Exchange and SharePoint what we're going to do. There's some configuration that we do with those two, and then we make a conditional access policy to force that, usually a couple of conditional access policies. So that's still available, and we're going to do a follow-up video to this one on how to do that to Macintosh, because the method we're going to talk about today can only be used for Windows, cannot be used for Macintosh. So this older method, this other method, is still available for Macintosh. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to make a video on that, understanding that we can do it for Macintosh and Windows if we want to. And we'll go over, the differences between them. But today we're going to do mobile application management for Windows. It's a little more robust. Basically, what we're going to do is force our users into using Microsoft Edge from unmanaged devices. We'll go over what unmanaged means in a second. Spoiler, can mean whatever you want it to mean, but we usually have specific things that we think it means. So we're going to force our users to use the Edge browser to go to Office 365. And when they do that, we're going to control what they can do with that data. We're not going to let them copy data out of Edge somewhere else. And we're also going to be in control of if we want to wipe any data that happened to make it on the device from the Edge browser. We're going to be in control of that. We'll control whether they access things or not. And also we're going to, like I said before, control the applications that don't obey mobile application management on Windows yet. And that's basically anything other than Edge. So we are still going to have to use conditional access policies to control that. So it's going to be a combination of two kinds of policies. I'm going to show you a total of 3 policies. In fact, one Intune mobile application policy or application protection policy, that's what they're called in Intune, to control Edge. And then 2 conditional access policies that actually force the experience. All right, so let's take a look at that right now. All right, I have my necessary spectacles on, and we're going to take a look at our mobile application policy in Intune first, and then we'll look in the Entra Admin Center at our conditional access policies that really put the teeth into all of this. So as you can see, I'm in the Intune portal. App protection policy is the way we configure our mobile application management policies are found inside of Intune, inside of the application node, and you can see they're right here, app protection policies. I have a couple of other ones in there. There's an Android one, there's an iOS one in here, and look at all the apps that those have. These are all apps that understand that platform's mobile application or app protection policy. Notice I have one more called Windows MAM. That only has one app in it, and that's all there is right now. In the future, I'm sure Microsoft's going to add to that Outlook, Teams, all the usual suspects. But for right now, it's just Edge. So let's take a look at this. First of all, we have a name, the basics, the name, description, platform is Windows. You can't choose any other platform. It's just Windows. For now, hopefully Macintosh will be forthcoming, but I wouldn't anticipate that to happen in the very near future. For apps, if I click on Edit, I see that Edge is already there, and if I click on Select Apps, I notice Edge is the only app there is to choose from. So for right now, it's all about Microsoft Edge, and that's why we're going to have to use a conditional access policy to force anyone on a personal device into using Edge. All right. Data protection. This is what we tell Edge that we'd like it to do or not to do. Receive data from. Well, it's okay if we receive data from outside some other app on the device and put it into Edge and into our documents. That seems usually to be okay and acceptable to most companies. So that's what I'm going to do here. Sending data and cut, copy, and paste, I'm not going to allow that at all outside of Edge. I can cut and copy within Edge, certainly. I can do whatever I want. But outside of Edge, to apps we don't control, we're not going to allow that. Then the functionality at the bottom, whether you want to print or not, I choose to allow people to print, but again, that's up to you, personal choice. All right, what else is here? Well, we have a few other things like health checks. How long has Edge not been used? Has the device, has their access been offline for a very long time? For a short period of time, maybe we block their access, they have to authenticate again. Long period of time, we wipe the data completely. Then they'd have to, again, authenticate again, open up, get into a work browser session in Edge and start working with the data again. Presumably, we'd have already disabled their account. In fact, you can see here, if it does detect we've disabled someone's account, it's also going to wipe the data. So to any data that might be left on the device, again, it's a browser session, so it's very little. And then also one other thing, device conditions. A few things we can choose here. Minimum OS version. This is to prevent the device, prevent Edge from connecting to Office 365 in the first place if it doesn't have these minimums. Allowed device threat level. That's really refers for the most part to Defender for Endpoint. We can actually use that in here as well. I'm not using that, so I'm going to let all of those things go. I'm going to cancel all of that. And that's pretty much it. And then I just have my assignments. Who's in that group? Everybody, just a few users. Again, up to you as to who we choose to apply this to, but we would probably apply it to most, if not all of the company, and then possibly exclude some people from that. All right, so great. Well, almost great. That by itself does not prevent anyone from using a regular desktop app to go to the cloud. For those people, if they use Edge, then yeah, they'll be restricted. But well, what if they're on a device that we fully manage? We've already BitLockered the Windows device up. We control all the apps. What about then? Well, we kind of like them to be able to use those apps. We only want to restrict people when they're using their personal devices. So in order to work that and to force that experience on only personal devices, we have to now use conditional access policies. I filter my conditional access policies to show the two bare bones minimum ones. We have one called require app protection for browser access to Office 365 from unmanaged devices, and we'll talk about what an unmanaged device is. And then another one that says, MAM, Windows require compliant device for desktop access. This basically, I'm going to show you one way to say, well, if someone's sitting at a device that actually is in Intune, we fully control it, then that user is allowed to use any app they want to get to Office 365. They're not limited to Edge. So let's look at the top one. So this top one I'm going to apply to everybody, just a few users. It's up to you. The target resource will always be one resource. It's Office 365, which again is Exchange, SharePoint. Don't use those apps individually. Use the Office 365. It accounts for all of the weird connector issues between teams. You know, Teams uses OneDrive, uses SharePoint, it uses Exchange, uses its own service. So Office 365 will provide the best experience here. Then, under conditions, well, for conditions, we just want to choose the unmanaged Windows devices. So what we're going to do, first of all, under device platforms, Windows only. Makes sense? Second of all, client apps. There's a weird one, but it makes sense when you look at it. We're only concerned with browser sessions. That's when we want this to happen. So browser, in this case, it's going to mean the Edge browser. Maybe in the future it'll mean Chrome and Firefox, but right now it's just Edge with a work profile. And then to make sure that managed devices are not caught up in this, we exclude them. In this case, you can read this. It says devices compliant. It's an exclusion, of course. Devices compliant. Devices compliant equals true, or device trust type equals server AD. What's server AD? That's a hybrid joined device. Those are devices that are joined to a domain, an on-premise domain. And we make the assumption that those devices are under control of something on-premise, group policies or something else. They could also make their way into Intune and become compliant. So this is Microsoft's idea. Usually will account for both of those management systems. You don't have to. You could just choose compliant. That's it. Or you could choose something else. Device is just Entra join, straight up Entra join, no other devices. It's really up to you. I'm just going with the standard method and the standard way to identify those devices. So we exclude those. So if you're on one of those devices, you can access information you don't need in any app. You don't need to use Edge. All right, then what? Well, if you match all of that, meaning you've been you're not excluded, then you must use an app protection policy. We have an app protection policy. You just saw it. You're forced into that. So this is the policy that forces unmanaged personal devices into using that Microsoft Edge only application protection policies with all of their restrictions. Okay. Well, we'd still like to make sure that those users can't use any other app. And believe it or not, if we start doing the math and we look at that, we really haven't prevented that. We've restricted them when they're using a browser. What if they're not using a browser? What if they're using straight up Teams, desktop, Outlook, the desktop app? What if they're using that? Has anything so far limited their ability to use those apps fully? No, we haven't done that yet. So we have to do that, and that's why you need the extra conditional access policy. Now, if you look at Microsoft's mobile application management, Windows MAM documentation, they don't mention that. They do mention the conditional access policy that I just showed you, but they don't mention the one that prevents you from using other apps. So let's take a look at that. Again, these are the two bare minimum conditional access policies. You could make even more. For instance, I can make sure that no one on a registered device was allowed to access information using a desktop app. I can do whatever I want. But let's take a look at this next one, require compliant device. Now, this is just the way I've put it together. I think this is a good way. So first of all, again, we use the same users, the same target resource app, Office 365. Oops. Let's get back into that. Same Office 365. In this case, under conditions, I still want to make sure I'm using Windows. It only targets Windows. But I've also chosen all the other apps. Now, in this case, I've gone ahead and decided Exchange ActiveSync and any other client. That's fine. You can choose whether to allow those or just straight up block those. I've just put them in here for a minimum configuration. So I'm not concerned with browser. The other one takes care of browser. So anything other than that, now you're caught up in this conditional access policy. And what does this one do? Well, under the grant controls here, I have required device to either be marked as compliant or required to be hybrid join. Another way to do the same thing we did with the filtering, only this is a quicker and easier way to do it. In this instance, you can see I just require one of those controls. So either you're hybrid join or you're compliant, then you're okay and you're allowed to use any of those devices. Okay. So that's pretty much it. We can go another way with this. We could block device access that managed this in an exclude situation or configuration. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. Again, conditional access policies, you run into some math there that gets a little difficult at times, especially when you start building and building and building and trying to figure out, how is someone going to find their way through this maze and get the experience that I'm trying to give to them. All right. So this is the minimum that you can create. We'll talk again in another video. We'll do the other way to do this, and we'll do it with Macintosh, the app enforced restrictions, where we give people more or less of a read-only experience. Then we'll also, I think in another video, or that one, we'll go over the user experience, and that way I can show you both experiences, both the Windows MAM and the app enforced restriction experience. So you get to see the differences between those. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching this video on Windows Mobile Application Management. If you like what you saw, please click on subscribe. I'm trying to get more subscribers, and also tell anybody you like about this. I'll try and again continue on these videos. Give me some comments. Let me know what you want to talk about in the security world, and we'll see if we can't make that happen. So until next time, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching.